Hi everyone, my name is Steffani Perez and this is a book review about the story Moby Dick. So the author of this story is Herman Melville and he began writing Moby Dick in February 1850 and he finished it 18 months later, a year longer than he anticipated. He is born in 1819 and grew up during the peak of American dominance of a whaling industry, roughly the period between 1820 and the start of the Civil War. He has experiences as a whaler and a common sailor from 1841 to 1843, and this pushed him to create this American masterpiece. Moby Dick, or known as the Whale, is inspired by a true-to-life story of a former captain of a whaler XX, George Pollard. Also about the book's ending is based on the sinking of the whaling ship Excess in 1820. In 1839, Melville read a story in a magazine about the albino sperm whale formed from its deadly attacks on a whaling ships, trying to hunt it down. This whale killed off the coast of a Chile near Mocha Island was called Mocha Dick. That inspires the Moby Dick. It was the allegorical novel about Ahab's search to kill a great white whale was also based on a real-life events. The author uses styles and literary devices ranging from the songs, poetry, and catalogs to Shakespearean stage directions and asides. In August 1850, the manuscript perhaps half finished, and he met Nathaniel Hawthorne, and he was deeply impressed by his Moses from an Old Manse, which he compared to Shakespeare's and its cosmic ambitions. He revised and deepened the Moby Dick as he was inspired with their encounter. He dedicated to Hawthorne in token of my admiration for his genius. The book was first published as a whale in London, October 1851, under its definitive title Moby Dick, or The Whale, in a single-volume edition in New York, November. Richard Bentley, as a London publisher, censored and changed sensitive passages that had Melville revised that includes the last-minute change of a title of a New York edition. The Whale, however, appears in the text of both editions as Moby Dick without the hyphen. Reviewers in Britain were largely favorable, though some objected of the tale seems to be told by a narrator who perished with the ship.
Hi everyone, I'm Cloi Enriquez and I'm going to talk about the history of the book and characters of the book entitled Moby Dick. Herman Melville is the author of Moby Dick. He was an American novelist, short story writer, and poet of American Renaissance period. So as a short recap, Renaissance is the period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. Renaissance also promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. Moby Dick is one of his best-known works, and it is first recognized as literary masterpiece. It has also the famous opening line, which is the "Call me Ishmael." Melville wrote the book himself and finished 18 months later. So there are 16 characters in the story. These are Ishmael, Ahab, Moby Dick, Starbuck, Quickhead, Stubb, Toshtego, Flask, Dagu, Pip, Fedella, Bildad, Father Maple, Captain Boomer, and Gabriel. So let's start with Ishmael. So he is the narrator and a junior member of the crew of the Pequod. Ishmael doesn't play a major role in the events of the novel, but much of the narrative is taken up by his eloquent, verbose, and extravagant discourse on whales and whaling. We know that he has gone to the sea out of some deep spiritual malaise and that shipping aboard a whaler is his version of committing suicide. He believes that men aboard a whaling ship are lost to the world. Second is Ahab, the egomaniacal captain of the Pequod. Ahab lost his leg to Moby Dick. He is single-minded in his pursuit of the whale, using a mixture of charisma and terror to persuade his crew to join him. As a captain, he is a dictatorial but not unfair. At moments, he shows a compassionate side, caring for the insane Pip and musing on his wife and child back in Nantucket. He considers Moby Dick the embodiment of evil in the world, and he pursues the white whale maniacally because he believes it is inescapable fate to destroy this evil. So the next character is Moby Dick, the great white sperm whale, or also referred to as the white whale. It is an infamous and dangerous threat to seamen. Considered by Ahab the incarnation of evil and a fated nemesis, Moby Dick thwarts free will and cannot be defeated, only accommodated or avoided. Ishmael tries a plethora with an approach to describe whales in general, but none proves adequate. Starbuck, the first mate of the Packard, Starbuck questioned Ahab's judgment, first in private and later in public. He is a Quaker who believes that Christianity offers a way to interpret the world around him. Although he is not a dogmatic or pushy about his beliefs, Starbuck acts as a conservative force against Ahab's mania. Quickig or Quickig, I'm not sure with the pronunciation, so he is Starbuck's skilled harpooner and Ishmael's best friend. Quickig was once a prince from a South Sea island who stowed away on a whaling ship in search of adventure. He is a composite of elements of African, Polynesian, Islamic, Christian, and Native American cultures. He is brave and generous and enables Ishmael to see that race has no bearing on a man's character. Stubb, he is the second mate of the Packard. Stubb, chiefly characterized by his mischievous good humor, easygoing, and popular. He proves a bit of a nihilist, always trusting in fate and refusing to assign too much significance to anything. Tashtego is Stubb's harpooner. Tashtego is a gay-head Indian from Martha's Vineyard, one of the last of the tribe that is about to disappear. Tashtego performs many of the skilled tasks aboard the ship, such as tapping the case of spermaceti in the whale's head. Like Wicked, Tashtego embodies certain characteristics of the noble savage and is meant to defy racial stereotypes. He is, however, more practical and less intellectual than Quicked. Like many a common sailor, Tashtego craves rum. Next is Flask, a native of Tisbury on Martha's Vineyard and the third mate of the Packard. Short and stocky, Flask has a confrontational attitude and no reverence for anything. His stature has earned him the nickname King Post because he resembles a certain type of short and square timber. Dagu, Flask's harpooner. Dagu is a physically enormous, imperious-looking African like Wicked. He stowed away on a whaling ship that stopped near his home. Dagu is less than prominent in the narrative than either Quickeg or Tashtego. So next is Pip, a young black boy who fills the role of a cabin boy or jester on the Packard. Pip has a minimal role in the beginning of the narrative but becomes important when he goes insane after being left to drift alone in the sea for some time. Like the fools in Shakespeare's play, he is half idiot and half prophet, often perceiving things that others don't. So next is Fadala, a strange Oriental Old Parsi or Persian fire worshipper whom Ahab has brought on board unbeknownst to most of the crew. Fadala has a very striking appearance. Around his head is a turban made from his own hair and he wears a black Chinese jacket and pants. He is an almost supernaturally skilled hunter and also serves as a prophet to Ahab. Fadala keeps his distance from the rest of the crew, who for their part view him with unease. Next is Bildad, another well-to-do Quaker, ex-whaleman from Nantucket, who owns a large share of the Packard. Bildad is crustier than Peleg in negotiations over wages. Both men display a business sense and a bloodthirstiness unusual for Quakers, who are normally pacifists. So next is Father Maple, a former whaleman and now the preacher in the New Bedford Whalesman Chapel. Father Maple delivers a sermon on Jonah and the whale in which he uses Bible to address the whalemen's lives. Learned but also experienced, he is an example of someone whose trials have led him toward God rather than bitterness or revenge. Next character is Captain Boomer. Captain Boomer, the jovial captain of the English whaling ship, the Samuel Enderby. Boomer lost his arm in an accident involving Moby Dick. Unlike Ahab, Boomer is glad to have escaped with his life, and he sees further pursuit of the whale as madness. He is a foil for Ahab as the two men react different ways to a similar experience. So last but not the least is Gabriel, a sailor aboard the Jeroboam. Part of his Shaker sect, Gabriel has prophesied that Moby Dick is the incarnation of the Shaker god and that any attempts to harm him will result in disaster. His prophecies have been borne out by death of the Jeroboam's mate in a whale hunt and the plague that rages aboard the ship. So that's all for the characters of the Moby Dick.
So next is the elements of the story. This includes the setting, the characters, the plot, the resolution, the climax, the outcome, and etc. First is the setting. The novel Moby Dick is set in mid-19th century America. The story begins in Massachusetts, in New Bedford and Nantucket Island, the chief centers of the American whaling industry. From there, the setting of the novel shifts to the whaling ship Pequod as it cruises around the globe. So, next is the characters. First is Ishmael. Ishmael, the narrator of the tale, actually has very little of an active role in the story. Still, everything we know about the hunt for Moby Dick comes to us through Ishmael, and the success or failure of the book centers on how we relate to his voice. So, Ishmael is an intelligent narrator. He is observant and curious and wanders into lengthy examinations of subjects that interest him. This includes the technology and culture of whaling, philosophical and religious questions, and examinations of the people around him. In many ways, Ishmael is meant as a stand-in for the reader, a man who is initially confused and overwhelmed by his experience, but who offers that very curiosity and studious attitude as guide to survival. Next is Captain Ahab. The captain of the whaling ship Pequod, Ahab is a fascinating character. He is also charismatic and cruel. He lost his leg from the knee down to Moby Dick in a previous encounter and has dedicated his energies to seeking revenge. Outfitting the Pequod with a special crew and increasingly ignoring both economic and social norms in favor of his obsessions. Ahab is viewed with awe by his crew and his authority is unquestioned. He uses violence and rage combined with incentives and respect to get his men to do as he wishes and is able to overcome the objections of the men when he reveals that he is willing to forgo profits in pursuit of his enemy. Ahab is capable of kindness, however, and often demonstrates true empathy towards others. Ishmael takes great pains to convey Ahab's intelligence and charm, as well as making Ahab one of the most complicated and interesting characters in literature. So next is Moby Dick. Based on a real white whale known as Mocha Dick, Moby Dick is presented by Ahab as a personification of evil, a unique white whale that has amassed a mythical level of celebrity in the whaling world as a fierce fighter who cannot be killed. Moby Dick bit off Ahab's leg at the knee in a prior encounter, having the embittered Ahab to insane levels of hatred. So next is Starbuck. First mate of the ship, Starbuck is intelligent, outspoken, capable, and deeply religious. He believes his Christian faith offers a guide to the world and that all questions can be answered through careful examination of his faith through Word of God. However, he is a practical man as well. A man who lives in the real world and who executes his duties with skill and competence. Starbuck is the main counterpoint to Ahab. He is an authority figure who is respected by the crew and who disdains Ahab's motivation and is increasingly outspoken against him. So next is Queequeg. Queequeg is the first person Ishmael meets in the book, and the two become very close friends. Queequeg works as Starbucks harpooner and comes from the royal family of a South Sea island nation who fled his home in search for an adventure. Melville wrote Moby Dick at a time in American history when enslavement and race were intertwined in every aspect of life, and Ishmael's realization that Queequeg's race is inconsequential to his high moral character. Queequeg is affable, generous, and brave, and even after his death, he is Ishmael's salvation, as his coffin is the only thing to survive the Pequod sinking, and Ishmael floats on it to safety. So next is Stubb. Stubb is the Pequod's second mate. He is a popular member of the crew due to his sense of humor and his generally easygoing persona, but Stubb has a few true beliefs and believes that nothing happens for any particular reason, acting as a counterweight to the extremely rigid world views of Ahab and Starbuck. So next is Tashtego. Tashtego is Stubb's harpooner. He is a pure-blood indigenous person from Martha's Vineyard, from a community that is rapidly vanishing. He is also a capable, competent man like Queequeg, although he lacks Queequeg's sharp intelligence and imagination. He is one of the most important members of the crew, as he possesses several skills specific to whaling that no other crew member could perform. So, next is Flask. The third mate is a short, powerfully built man who is difficult to like due to his aggressive attitude and a purposely almost disrespectful manner. The crew generally respects him, however, despite the less than flattering nickname King pose that Flask resembles. Next is Pip. Pip is one of the most important characters in the book. A young black boy, Pip is the lowest ranking member of the crew, filling the role of cabin boy, performing whatever odd jobs needs to be done. At one point in the pursuit of Moby Dick, he is left drifting on the ocean for some time and has a mental breakdown. Returning to the ship, he suffers from the realization that as a black person in America, he has less value to the crew than the whales they hunt. Melville undoubtedly intended Pip to be a comment on the system of enslavement and race relations at the time, but Pip also serves to humanize Ahab, who even in the throes of his insanity. Next is the plot. The struggle against Moby Dick lasts 3 days. On the first day, Ahab spies the whale himself, and the whaling boats row after it. Moby Dick attacks Ahab's boat, causing it to sink, but Ahab survives the ordeal when he reaches Stubb's boat. Despite the first failed attempt at defeating the whale, Ahab overuses him for a second day. On the second day of the chase, roughly the same defeat occurs. This time, Moby Dick breaks Ahab's ivory leg while Fedallah dies when he becomes entangled in the harpoon line and is drowned. When Ahab and his crew reach Moby Dick, Ahab finally stabs the whale with his harpoon, but the whale again tipped Ahab's boat. However, the whale rams the Pequod and causes it to begin sinking. In a seemingly suicidal act, Ahab throws his harpoon at Moby Dick but becomes entangled and the line and goes down with it. Only Ishmael survives this attack, for he was fortunate to be on a whaling boat instead to be on a Pequod. Eventually, he is rescued by the Rachel, whose captain is still looking for his only son lost at the sea. Moby Dick lived on the ocean. So, the conflict, the protagonist and the antagonist. First, the protagonist of the novel is Ahab, the one-legged captain of the Pequod. He is bound and determined to get revenge on Moby Dick for biting off his leg. Antagonist is that Captain Ahab's antagonist is Moby Dick, the great whale. So So next is the rising action. Ahab announced his quest to the sailors and nails the doubloon to the mast as the Pequod encounters various ships with news and stories about Moby Dick. So the resolution of the story Moby Dick, Ishmael was left as the only survivor of the Pequod sinking, floats on a coffin, and is rescued by another whaling ship, the Rachel. So next is the themes, major themes and minor themes. Major themes, whaling as a metaphor for life. Central to Moby Dick is the idea that the Pequod's passage through the world sees in many ways like mankind's passage through life. The world's a ship on its passage out, Melville says. Next is alienation. Ishmael, whose name links him with a biblical outcast, begins the book alienated from the society of men. Most male whalemen, and by implication most people, are cut off, lonely, isolated. Ishmael finds friendship with Queequeg and occasionally feels brotherhood with the other crew members. But the book's final word is orphan, suggesting that Ishmael may be just as alone at the book's end as he was at its beginning. Next is friendship. Ishmael's friendship with Queequeg gives warmth and meaning to Ishmael's life. In fact, Queequeg, through his coffin, quite literally saves Ishmael from the fate suffered by the rest of the crew. This is balanced against the theme of alienation. So, the minor theme is that the novel is also held together thematically by its depiction of the whaling industry as it existed in 19th century America. It not only gives the reader valuable and factual information on whaling, it also presents a critique of the industry. Next is the mood. The mood in the story initially is light, casual, and even humorous. However, from the time Ishmael reaches the Spouter Inn at the New Bedford to his eventual admittance on the whaling ship, the mood changes. So, in other words, even when Ishmael is humored by his newfound friendship with the savage Queequeg, it is tempered by an ominous feeling. This is revealed again when a stranger who gives them a veiled warning about the ship, the Pequod, stops Ishmael and Queequeg. The stranger's name is Elijah. This atmosphere of an impending doom continues throughout the journey underneath the surface calm and camaraderie of the crew members. Therefore, right from the beginning, the author, through various symbols and imagery, suggests that the journey on the Pequod is leading towards disaster. So next is the climax. In this part comes the revelation to Ahab that however he was pursued by his crew to stop his malady in pursuing Moby Dick, he had realized his life's purposes. In chapter 132, the symphony, Ahab interrogates himself and his quest in front of Starbuck and realizes that he does not have the will to turn aside from his purpose, which is to have his revenge on the great white sperm whale. And last is the outcome. The outcome of the plot is tragic. Captain Ahab drowns in the sea while trying to kill Moby Dick. Meanwhile, the angry whale rams its massive head into the Pequod's side and the ship sinks. The lone survivor of the novel is Ishmael.
Comparison of Moby Dick and the Old Man and the Sea. The Moby Dick famously begins with the narration invocation, "Call me Ishmael." The novel consists of 135 chapters in which narrative and essayistic portions intermingle, as well as an epilogue and a front matter. It is written by Herman Melville. Ishmael is an outcast who turns out to the sea for meaning. Relates to the audience the final voyage of the Pequod, a fictional whaling vessel. Introduced to a number of characters, many of whom have names with religious resonance, as it is a story of tribulation, beauty, and madness. It is a story of a ship captain named Ahab who lost his leg because of his encounter of a large whale whom they named Moby Dick. Ishmael and his friend Queequeg recognizes the problem that Ahab is losing his mind. This nature of Ahab's obsessions first revealed to Ishmael's and Queequeg after the Pequod's owners, Peleg and Bildad, explained to them that Ahab is still recovering about his leg. The journey will be unlike the other whaling missions because this time, despite of the reluctance of Starbuck, Ahab intends to hunt and kill the beastly Moby Dick no matter what it costs. Ahab and his team continues their journey and they encounter a number of obstacles and different challenges along the way. They build a coffin where Quickog recovers. After that, it becomes a replacement lifeboat that eventually saves Ishmael's life. Ahab receives a prophecy from a crew member informing him of his future death and which he ignores. Moby Dick is spotted and over the course of 3 days engages violently with Ahab's and the Pequod until the whale destroys the ship, killing everyone except Ishmael as he survived by floating on a Quickog's coffin until he is picked by another ship named Raquel. This story, The Old Man and the Sea, is written in 1851 by Ernest Hemingway. Final full-length work is published during his lifetime. The book is dedicated to Charlie Scribner and his literary editor Max Perkins. The Old Man in the Sea is taught at schools and around the world, and it continued to earn foreign royalties. The story is about Santiago, an aging who experienced fishing 84 days without catching a fish. He is now seen as Salao, or colloquial pronunciation of salado, which means salty or worse form of unlucky. Manolin, who has been forced by his parents to work on a luckier boat, remains dedicated to Santiago. On the 85th day of his unlucky strike, Santiago takes his skiff out early. By noon, he has hooked a big fish that he is sure it is a marlin, but he is unable to haul in it. With his sacrifice to hold the marlin, he determines that no one is worthy enough to eat it. On the 30th day of the marlin begins to circle the skiff, so he is forced to stab it with a harpoon to kill it. Looking at his bigger fish on the way home, he was thinking of a higher price when he will bring it of the market and how many people will fed. The trail of the blood of the dead marlin attracts sharks, made them come out and eat the marlin. Santiago killed the sharks, but the marlin is completely devoid. He tells the shark they have killed his dreams. When Santiago reaches shore, he leaves the fish, head and skeleton with his boat. He comes home and falls into a deep sleep. A group of fishermen who gathered and measured the dead marlin. It is 18 feet 5.5 meters from nose to tail. They tell Manolin to tell Santiago how sorry they are. When Santiago awakes, he donates the head to the fish to Pedrico, when he and the Manolin promise to fish together once again. The story is similar in terms of they both want to succeed in a mission where they want to kill the whale in the Moby Dick and the marlin in the Old Man in the Sea. It's about doing, sacrificing, and trying everything to reach their goal. The comparison of the two is that they have different realization that we can learn on. In the Moby Dick, even if it hurts, we should learn to let them go to help ourselves be free, because if we will continue to holding the pain and anger, we will never be happy. Revenge is not always a solution in every situation. Sometimes we are just putting ourselves more at risk. In the story, The Old Man in the Sea, even if the life is hard on us, we tend to be unlucky, to feel down, and to think that life is unfair. We also need to think that striving hard and keep fighting every battles and challenges that comes our path. In that way, we are helping ourselves getting ready for what is really meant for us. Then it is for you, it will always come to you. There's no need to be hard on yourself. Everyone is blessed, just learn to wait for your time. That's all. Thank you.